So in this case, I'm going to show you how you should have done your code so that we can be talking about the functions, the loops, right, the arrays, the methods for the arrays, and all of the topics that are essential for our subject in this moment. Okay, so right now let's clear this one so that we can just have a clear perspective over there. Okay, that's good. So the first instruction that I'm going to execute is that I need to import random. Okay, this one is just like an additional step so that I can show you how the program is going to work overall with different data, right? Because at the beginning, if I just establish that my theater is going to be false, I mean all of the seats are going to be false, that'll be different now, and the counting will be 0 every single time. Okay, so in this case, I import choice from random. That is a function that allows me to select one element from an array. In this case, my array is going to be options, and it's going to contain 2 values, false and true. Right. Then in the evening, that is the name that the instruction specifies that the array needs to be called like. I'm going to create a 2-dimensional array. Yeah. First this dimension. Yeah, and then this one over here that is going to be the list that is inside of the list. Okay, so in this list is going to be the result of selecting, right, a choice or selecting a choice from false or true that are stored in this array, and that's going to do it 20 times. Then when we finish that one, it's going to execute that same code 10 times again. Okay, so in that case, what basically I'm doing is to get this. Have a look at the execution, and well, as you can see, we created our evening theater with all of the possible data, and so in this moment I just cared about being able to have different values between false and true. Then I print the evening so that you can just have a look over here, and then I'm going to create a function that allows me to count how many false elements I have in evening. Okay, remember in here I'm just creating the function that is receiving a parameter that is an array. In this case, I'm calling it evening, but it could be called array. Yeah, and in here I'm just going to specify that it's the array, so that when we call it, I pass the argument and it's going to be working as expected. Okay, so in our function, I create 2 variables that are called count true and count false, and they are initialized with a value of 0. Then I'm going to iterate through all of the possible seats and all of the possible rows in my array to determine whether a seat is false or true. So that's why it's specified that for every row in a range from 0 to 10, yes, and then for every seat in a range from 0 to 20, I'm going to determine if the array, meaning the parameter, row, meaning the first row out of 10, and the seat, meaning out of 20, is true. If that condition gets to be true, I'm going to increment the value of the variable county plus 1. Okay, that is the same to say this plus equal 1. Okay, that's a possible variable. That's a possible structure that you may apply into Python. Okay, and else, meaning that is false, I'm going to be counting and incrementing the false in the count f. Then I get to print it. Okay, basically what this did is that you're going to be getting your loop, right? You're going to get the evening theater and then the values 100 and 100. Like in this case it was equal, but probably, you see, in this one it's 91 out of 10. So that differs based on the result of this definition over here in evening. Then I'm going to specify that there's a maximum that is equal to 4, because that's what the instruction says, and what the limit should be, because a client cannot book more than 4 seats at a time. That moment is when we're going to create the range check function that allows me to check whether or not the client can buy or book those seats, because remember that instruction says that's just not more than 4, right? Then in that function you're going to be having 2 parameters: the maximum, that is going to be the value of 4, and the seats requested, yeah, that is this variable. So if the seats requested are found in a range from 0 till the maximum plus 1. Remember that in Python, limits are not inclusive, so that means that the limit, we need to subtract 1 from the limit. Basically, if we just put 4, it's going just to get to 3, and I want the client to be able to get up to 4. So that's why I need to specify that it needs to be +1, right? And then if that's true, I'm going to print a valid option, and then I'm going to return true to the global scope. Why am I doing that? Because remember that everything that happens in a function has a local scope, right? And then I need to be able to have or to determine whether or not the result of the function, of calling the function, was true, so that I can start, for example, some while true loops, or aka infinite loops. Then, if that is not true, meaning that the seeds are not in the range, I'm going to print that it's not a valid option, and then it's going to return false, right? So that I can continue in the loop until the client inputs a number from 1 till 4. Then I'm going to also create a function that is called available seeds, that's going to receive the array, and is going to be also receiving as a parameter the seeds requested by the user. I'm going to globalize the variable seeds because I'm going to use seeds for another function, right, over here in book. So it needs to be globalized in the first time. Seeds is going to be an array, yeah, and actually it's going to be a 2-dimensional array. But in this case, I'm just creating the seeds as a 1D so that we can just modify it later on. Then again, this structure is pretty common because in this case, I need to go through every row and through every seed in that row, right? So for row in range of 10, and then for seed in range of 20, so that means that it's going to be repeated 200 times. If the array, meaning evening, row, meaning the row of the theater, and seed, meaning the seed of the row, is false, right? I'm going to go to seeds, my array that I created over here in this function, and I'm going to append to it as an array the row and the seed, okay? And then I'm going to specify that if the length of the seeds is equal to the seeds required, meaning that, for example, I already got the 4 seeds that they were needed, I'm going to return the seeds array to the global scope, and if nothing of that happens, I'm going to return none, so that when we do the validation process, we get to have a false option. Then I'm going to be having a booking or a book function that is going to receive the array and the seeds required. And then I'm going to iterate through the seeds that we need to go through. Okay, so for seed in the range of the length of the seeds, meaning how many seeds the user selected to book, right? I'm going to assign to row and column the value that is stored in seed. So imagine that the user just had two seeds that they wanted to select, and these are the only ones, meaning row 3, seed 6, and row 4, seed 9, right? You see, remember this array is the same that we created over here. So it's basically going to go to array seed, let's suppose seed 0, meaning this one, and it's going to unpack these elements into these variables. So the 3 is going to be stored in row, and the 6 is going to be stored in column, right? And then those values are going to be used so that I can use it to evening, go to evening, row 3, seed 6, and change the value that was false for a true, yeah? And that basically means that we booked that seed. And then, guys, I'm going to create a main loop that is going to be an infinite loop because I don't know how many clients we are going to be having, right? And I'm going to call my function count to determine how many available seeds we have. I'm going to receive the seed required by the user to be booked. And then I'm going to call the function range check, that is the one that validates the input in the range. Maximum is 4. Remember that I could put here max, right? Because maximum was defined over here. Maximum, okay? And I also need to pass the number of seeds that the user requested, okay? So if the result of this function is false, meaning that the number of seeds required does not fit into a range of maximum +1, is going to restart. Why restart? Because I need to be able to go ahead and tell the client, sorry, we cannot just book 5 seats because that's part of the instruction, okay? And if it's true, right, meaning that it's else, I'm going to be storing into availability. I'm going to be storing the result of available seats, right? What is going to be the result? The array, okay? So basically, availability is going to be an array, right? A 2-dimensional array. So if availability This one basically means that if that is true, and a variable is true when it exists, right? When it has like a length of +1. It's going to be considered false if we have 0, right? And again, that means Boolean values, so 0 for false, 1 for true. Then, if that is true, meaning that I have elements in availability, I'm going to call the function book, and I'm going to pass evening, that is the theater, and I'm going to pass the options that I have available. I'm going to print that the seats were booked, yeah, because in the booking, if you pay attention, I don't have any printing instruction. So basically, the user will be confused whether or not he or she booked the seats in the theater, okay? And then I'm going to say that for every seat in the range of the length of availability, meaning for every seat that was requested by the user, I'm going to go and do the same. Get their seat and pack it into row and call, and then I'm going to print the row +1 and the call +1. Why +1? Because remember that in Python the index they start from 0. So that means that, for example, I cannot just tell the user that they are in row 0 because it wouldn't make any sense for them. So that's why I need to say if it's in row 0, well, +1, it means that it's row 1, the first place, yeah? So it will be clear for the user, and then meaning that if there's no availability, there's going to say that there are no more seats available. So let's run the program to see what we get and to see in real life, okay? So in this scenario, there's 105. Let's see. There's 105 count trues, meaning that are booked, and 95 that are available, okay? How many seats do you want to book? Let's test with 8. It says that it's not a valid option, and then we have still the same number of seats available. Okay, how many times? I want just 1. There's one valid option, and of course, there's something that broke in here. Let's go and check in here. Let's probably was the maximum. Let's test it with 4. How many seats do you want to book? 2. There are no more seats available. Again, what is the problem? What was the last change? In here, what is happening? Booking is not being called because we are just getting till this moment, okay? Till this one. So the else is not working. Why? If the range is maximum +1, max. Let's run it again. How many would you want to? 1. That's not the element that is causing a problem over here. How many options? 4. There's an valid option, but then it says that there are not more available seats, meaning that is falling into this one, okay? Because probably the result is being given none. Let's try again. How many want? 1. Let's do the debugging. How many seats do you want to book? 1. There are no more seats available, meaning that is false in here. If availability, okay? I want to test 1. Okay, perfect. It was the fact that we were testing it for being true, but it wasn't true because, actually the variable was not true, but if there's something in availability, okay? So, as you can see, we had the beginning 107 booked seats, and then we had 93 available. I just want to book 1, and it says that it's a valid option because, indeed it is. It works perfectly to the requirements of the system. And then it's going to say that to print that the seats were booked, and then it's going to specify which ones it was. So it says that it's row 1, meaning row 0, remember, and seat 2, meaning seat 1. So at the beginning, look, we can go to row 0, this is row 0 till here, and we can go to index 1. 0, 1. At the beginning, you see that it was false, meaning that it was available to be booked. And then, of course, I applied the function book, and then it changes status, okay? Probably you can, for example, after doing that, you can print evening, so you can see the change. Let me print evening. Let's run it again. And it will give us a specific result else. Yes, of course. There you are. Okay, so how many do you want to book? I want to book 4. Okay, so it says that at the beginning in row 0, 1, 2, 5, and 6, meaning 0, 1, 5, yes, and 6, they were false, right? And I requested to be 4 seats, meaning 1, 2, 3, and 4. And effectively, if you pay attention to the new one, right, they change. Okay, and I can continue doing this until you see all of the values of the arrays or the rows in the evening theater, they become, yeah, they become true. Okay, and by that, guys, our program will be finished.